Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Amon Green, Green Bay Packers all-time leader in rushing, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packer content. Go Pack, go!
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Also, find this podcast in our Overflow channel, wherever you get your podcast. Just search Packer Fan Total Access. Joined alongside Jacob in Wisconsin, here to talk a lot of Green Bay Packers tonight as he gives the awkward wave. You always love to see it. We've got a segment we're going to call Good or Gone, all right? And it's going to be kind of diving into the 2027 Green Bay Packer free agents. Who do we want to re-sign? I do think that one of the things that's gone under the radar this offseason, and I know I'm as guilty as anyone, is whether or not you re-sign some of these players that are set to be free agents this next year, I guess you could say in 2027. That's going to determine how aggressive you are in free agency. So we got some tough decisions to make, and we're going to kind of dive into that tonight. Also, I think it was Bill Huber wrote an article, kind of a crucial offseason for Brian Gutekunst, and we'll dive into that article a little bit and talk about, maybe what's at stake in that regard. Also, Malik Willis comp pick talk. Wendell Ferreira put a nice piece together over on X. You guys go check it out. What kind of comp pick are we looking at for Malik Willis, and what Ian Rappaport seems to think the market might be when it comes to Malik Willis? And if we have time, we'll get in some Patreon questions as well. We may talk a little draft as well. But before we get into everything, if you would, do that YouTube stuff for us. Hit like, hit subscribe. If this is your first time tuning into PTA, welcome. Thank you for making us part of your evening. We are not experts. We're not insiders. We're not media members. We're fans just like you, talking Packers on a daily basis. So if you're looking for that type of content, hit like, hit subscribe, click the bell icon so you don't miss out on any future live streams. And we're going to make this a little more common as we get into the spring and summer months. You're going to see us go live in the evenings a lot more as my schedule ramps up. We'll still try to get you some episodes throughout the day as well. So should get the regular crew back together more consistently. Jacob, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I was just telling you before we went live, it's a pretty good blizzard going on right now. We only probably got about 2 inches of snow, but it's blowing pretty good. So the little stretch of 50-degree plus weather is over for us here. Sounds like you're having a blast, though.
Yeah, we're getting into the 70-degree temps, right around 70 degrees the next few days, and then it's going to turn off cold again. But it's just a little glimpse of spring, and everything's starting to pop. You can see the grass starting to turn green a little bit. Now, it'll get killed off a couple times, and then we'll be ready to roll. So it's right around the corner. And I love this time of year because obviously the days are going to get a little bit longer, right? That stuff's going to start to happen here sooner rather than later. You're getting into draft season, free agency, all that stuff. The birds start chirping, the flowers start blooming. It's an awesome time of the year for sure, man. So, all right, let's waste no time, man. Let's get into it. I know the chat is already full in here. Way too many to mention them all, but just a shout out to Bates. We got Chris in. We got Daryl in the house. Not so cool. Memphis Magic, the barber in the house. Who else we got here? Clint C. Good to see you, buddy. Hopefully you're doing well. Professor Cakes. You're starting to see some of the regular crew. There's Jen Wright. When we go live in the evening, you get a little bit more of the regular crew back in there. I love to see it, man. William Jenkins in the house. Brad Christian. Appreciate y'all swinging through. All right. Let's jump into it, Jacob. This 2027 Packer free agent class, I guess, is the best way to describe it. Man, it's a little concerning when you talk about the decisions you got to make in terms of who you need to bring back. You can't bring them all back, right? There's going to be some tough decisions you got to make. Let's just dive into the list here and talk about it from a previous average annual aspect, and then we'll talk market value as well. Now, obviously, you notice Elton Jenkins on this list. The thing about Elton Jenkins that's interesting is, are we even going to have him this year, right? We may move on at this point, but I feel comfortable saying that Elton Jenkins, if he does come back to Green Bay this year and play for the Packers, I feel really comfortable saying he will not be on the roster in 2027. Do you agree with that? Disagree with that? Do you think there's a chance maybe he takes a pay cut, sticks around, or do you think Elton Jenkins will be gone?
No, yeah. I still find it hard to believe that he maybe would even be here this year. So,
yeah, I agree. Next on the list is Christian Watson. Previous average annual value of $11 million. Obviously, they did that 1-year patch-it deal, so it kind of blimped that up a touch. But Christian Watson going to be a unrestricted free agent next year. So obviously, you got to make a decision here and try to get him under contract with the contract extension, probably before camp ends. I imagine he's at or towards the top of the list for the Packers in terms of prioritization. So he's on this list. You got Keyshawn Nixon on this list, previous average annual value of $6 million. Lucas Van Ness, previous AAV of $4.3 million. Isaiah McDuffie, $4 million. I think Isaiah McDuffie is kind of underappreciated, underrated on this team, to be honest with you. Then you got Devontae Wyatt at 3.2. Now, obviously, we got him on the fifth-year option this season, and then he's set to hit free agency next year. You got to make a decision on him. Luke Musgrave, Jaden Reed, Tucker Kraft. So, again, that's what's so frustrating about being the youngest roster in the league for me, is you've got these guys that have been key players for you, like your Tucker Krafts, your Jaden Reeds, your Devontae Wyatt, your Lucas Van Ness, right? Christian Watson. Gone are the days of having those minimal cap hits for those guys. And you kind of wasted their minimal cap hits by having the youngest roster and not really pressing in with more veterans to kind of give yourself a little bit more of a window. Because what's going to happen, Jacob, I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news, and I'm not saying we're going to be in cap hell by no stretch, but you're going to make some tough decisions and have to let some of these guys walk, man. It's going to be really, really interesting to see how they play this out, because I feel comfortable saying we will not have enough cap space to keep Christian Watson, Lucas Van Ness, Isaiah McDuffie, Devontae Wyatt, Jaden Reed, and Tucker Kraft. All those guys. You can't just say, oh, yeah, we're going to pay them all top 10, top 20 at their position and have them back. Now, if they're willing to take a sweetheart deal, awesome. That's great. But, let's just start this way. If you were to pick one on that list outside of Elton Jenkins that you'd say definitely not bringing them back, that would be the one I would ask first. Would it be Christian Watson, Lucas Van Ness, Devontae Wyatt, Jaden Reed, or Tucker Kraft if you had to pick one out of those four? Because it's tough for me, man. I know what my answer is, but it's still tough. It's a tough decision.
I can't pick Nixon.
No, Nixon is not going to be breaking the bank by no stretch of the imagination. So,
I mean,
if you're talking about a guy whose market value, I mean, they don't even have the market value listed because it's probably less than $5 million per. The reason I mentioned those guys,
I hate to say it. I mean, I honestly would probably go Wyatt, but
me, same thing, man. And I know people love Devontae Wyatt, and I can't remember who wrote the article earlier. I think it was earlier today or yesterday. They put an article out talking about, Devontae Wyatt. His pass rush is great. He's a really good pass rusher. The run defense was abysmal. So how do you justify paying $20 million per for a guy that, yeah, he can get after the quarterback, but he's going to neglect the run, right? Or make you weaker in the run fit. So that's why we've been screaming for the last 2 years. We weren't sold on Devontae Wyatt. He could emerge this year as that guy, but he still hasn't hit that point yet. At some point, you've got to acknowledge, okay, this isn't the guy that we want to pay 20 or 25 million per for, and we need to go find that 3-tech, right? So that's kind of where I'm at with Wyatt. That would be my choice too, Jacob, hands down. Because Tucker Kraft, I want him on this roster. He's vital to this offense. Jaden Reed, I think, is way, way, way more important to this offense than people give him credit for as well. Christian Watson, I feel comfortable saying, is your best receiver as it sits right now. Maybe Matthew Golden takes over that role. But the thing that makes me nervous, Jacob, is if you just key in on the wide receiver position, just Christian Watson and Jaden Reed, right? Can you bring both those guys back? Are those the two guys that you're going to build your offense around? You know what I mean? I imagine it probably is if you can afford to pay two wide receivers. And now the question becomes, how much money are they worth? What kind of money could Jaden Reed get on the open market? Because you don't have the fifth-year option you can slap him with, right? Because he was a second-round pick. So what would he get on the open market? Would he get more than what Christian Watson's market value is showing at 15.5? Would he get less? Would it be around 10? Because if you could get Jaden Reed at $10 million per, I'm all about it. Will he take that kind of deal? You better go to him early, right? So you can kind of get ahead of the game there. But if you had to choose between those two receivers, I think I know what your answer is. It's probably the same as mine, but I don't like having to answer that question at all.
No, if I absolutely have to, I think I'm picking Watson. But I don't like that. That's a Sophie's choice. Reed, they're very different too. I mean, I think Reed has developed into an all-around really good receiver. I think Watson's just kind of maybe fine-tuned, being that really deep threat. Plus, his natural stride and length. He's just so quick. Like if you misjudge him just with one little misstep, he can absolutely burn you from anywhere on the field.
Yeah. And then I love what Memphis asks here. He says, let Van Ness walk. So if we had to put those three together, Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, or Lucas Van Ness. Which of those three would you let walk? You see what I'm saying? Oh, throw Tucker Kraft in there too, by the way. Although I feel like Tucker Kraft might be at the top of our list, to be honest with you.
I'd honestly probably would let LVN walk. Yeah.
So now you're talking about letting Devontae Wyatt walk in free agency and potentially Lucas Van Ness, depending on what the price is and whether or not they can get a sweetheart deal. What does that tell you about how we've drafted in the first round? That we can't prioritize Lucas Van Ness and or Devontae Wyatt to pay them top 15, top 20 at their position.
That's a good point.
We'd have to say it's a miss on those picks, right? So it's tough, man. It's really tough conversation to have. But again, now's the time to dive into it as the dust is kind of settling and we're starting to press into draft season and free agency and all that. These are the conversations that Brian Gutekunst and his staff is having behind the scenes. The other day in his presser, he talked about this, right? He had specifically mentioned, well, there's a lot of young guys that we want to bring back on this team too, that we got to make decisions on. And that's going to determine how aggressive you are in free agency. I'm not saying you can't bring back all these guys. You can, but you can't spend a dime in free agency this year if you're going to bring all these guys back, right? That's what it comes down to. So now the question becomes, was the roster really good enough? Was it? I don't know. For me, I would rather take a swing in free agency on another defensive tackle rather than Devontae Wyatt personally. That's just kind of how I see it. Like when you look at the cheat sheet, and I know these guys aren't like in the future plans, so to speak, like Calais Campbell's old, David Onyemata's old, right? But someone like a Logan Hall, if you got him at $5 or $6 million per somehow, some way, and he's just as effective as Devontae Wyatt, that would be an answer at 3 Tech, right? So maybe you do make that decision this year. And then if Logan Hall plays well, okay, now we can afford to part ways with Devontae Wyatt. Because Devontae's 28, too. That's another thing that makes this very difficult as well. So
Devontae's 28, and isn't Logan Hall, he's only 26, right?
Yep. Now,
man,
I'm really about to blow your mind now as we go on down the list. I think there's a couple others, or am I? No, Evan Williams will be next year. I was thinking Evan Williams might be this year, but it's going to be the following year, I believe. Yeah, so it'll be 2028. So we dodged one there, right? But like Dontavion Wicks, I think we would all agree you just let him walk, right? You got to do that. Here's another one, Kobe Wooden. Kobe Wooden was your nose tackle last year, right?
Yeah.
For the price that you could get Kobe Wooden back, let's say you could get Kobe Wooden back at $5 or $6 million per. If you made me decide Devontae Wyatt $20 million per or Kobe Wooden at $5 million per, I'm going Kobe Wooden because he led your defensive line in run stops, right? So he's your best run defender when it comes to stopping the run there at that nose tackle, one tech, shade, whatever you want to call it, as opposed to what Devontae Wyatt brought to the table. There's an argument to be made there in terms of what's worth the actual money spent,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, plus he came through clutch in some pretty good games and from my knowledge stayed somewhat healthy compared to Wyatt. So I don't know. That's yeah, man, there's a couple tough choices here for sure.
Coach Lynn asked, what about Carl Brooks? It's a great question. Carl Brooks is on this list too. I have to let him walk unless you can get him for a sweetheart deal, like $3 million or something. But in my opinion, Coach, Carl Brooks has shown flashes. Nothing like his rookie year. His rookie year was like, this dude might be a dog. And to me, he just hasn't lived up to that since that point. Although it does seem like the coaching staff has always liked him. But like Memphis says here, I like Wooden, just not elite. Completely agree, right? Like you want him on your team at the right price. What is that price? I'd be willing to go $4 or $5 million for Kobe Wooden. Now maybe he could hit the market and do a lot better. I don't know, but it's tough, man. I think these are fascinating conversations to have. Carrington Valentine, for the right price, would like to have him back, but we're not going to pay him starter money, right? You can't do that. That'd be malpractice at this point, right? So, very, very interesting group of players there, and I just wanted to kind of run it by you. Is there anybody else on this list that grabs your attention? Or do you got any final thoughts on that? Because I thought it would be interesting to look into it. And the only market value, just to kind of give you a little extra ammo here, Jacob, Christian Watson's market value is projecting at $15.5 million. Tucker Kraft, $15.5 million.
Jeez.
Elton Jenkins, 15.1. It don't really matter. Devontae Wyatt, they're showing at $12 million. If he hits the open market, somebody's going to pay him money. That's going to happen just because of his pass rushing ability. LVN at 8.6. I would sign him back at 8.6, although they're showing a club option, right? And I don't know. I know the 5th-year option will be significantly higher than 8.6. If you could get me LVN at $8 million per, I'm signing that deal. I've seen enough last year to know, okay, now that he's going to get more opportunities as we move on from Gary, whether it's this year or next year, I would be okay at 8.6. I think that's those type of sweetheart deals we're talking about,
Yeah, I would totally sign that deal every day of the week. $8 million for LVN. Like you said, I still think he is an ascending player. We've seen what he can kind of be when he wanted more reps, and then obviously that happened with Micah, and then he couldn't stay healthy, kind of banged up off and on throughout the year. So I think if he has a full stride at this and is actually, like you said, to get a lot more snaps, we've seen the type of player he can be. He is a beast. And then Devontae Wyatt at anywhere near 12 mil, I don't want to have that. That doesn't sound good to me.
Yeah, and Ron Sample says all of these projected seem reasonable. I agree. Christian Watson at 15.5. We would be damn lucky to get him at that number. That would be awesome. Yeah. Tucker Kraft, some would go, man, that's a lot. Tucker Kraft's worth every penny there if the ACL checks out, right? And it kind of got me thinking too. You look, when you have these conversations, you look for precedents, right? Like, okay, what has Goody done in the past? What has the Packers organization done in the past? Tucker Kraft is coming in kind of like Christian Watson's similar situation last year. I wonder if they'll patch it together with just a 1-year deal, like, okay, give you a little bit of security, that type of thing that Watson signed. Would Tucker be willing to sign it? I have a lot of faith in Tucker being willing to sign that as much as anybody else on the team. If he doesn't want to sign it, I get that too. But that might be a way to work that in with the ACL, is just give him like a little patch it deal. And maybe his previous average annual value jumps from 1.3 to about 10 million, kind of like what Watson's did. Does that make sense? Yeah. So we'll probably go that route. Wyatt at 12 million, I'm okay with that. He's a good enough pass rusher. That's worth the money. But again, if that market value doesn't hold true and he's upwards of 20 million, I wouldn't be willing to pay that. So
I like Fishy Things reminds everybody of this, which I never think about it this way. It says Wyatt will be 32 in 4 years. It's pretty crazy to think. I still, for whatever reason, in my eyes, look at him as he's such a young kid, but it's really not the case, especially when you start being those big dudes. They don't last that long sometimes.
Yeah, completely agree. And that's the thing about Wyatt is it seems like there is a portion of the fan base that feel like, no, he's worth the money. He's worth the money. And I'm sitting back going, how many snaps did he play last year? How many snaps? You've seen this. This has become a common theme, and that's not to knock him. It's nothing personal, but the most important ability is availability, right? Availability and accountability. If you can't be on the field, it doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter what kind of tools you have. If you can't stay on the field, why are you wasting cap space on that player? You just can't afford to do it. So again, it just seems like over and over and over, one problem that constantly rears its ugly head when it comes to the way we draft is we're drafting players that can't stay healthy. It just seems like it's that more times than not. I mean, Marshawn Lloyd, right? Perfect example. Third round pick, can't stay healthy. Luke Musgrave to a certain extent, right? I mean, he battled some injuries early, and that's why Tucker was able to kind of work in there and steal that tight end one job from him, although they're not cut from the same cloth in terms of the stylistic player, right? So yeah, really interesting group of players there. So we'll see how it shakes out. We'll keep our finger on the pulse here. Again, when we get into training camp, we're going to revisit this list because these guys, that's when the news typically breaks. Before camp is over, these guys get a deal. Sometimes before they go out there, before day one of practice in training camp, right? They'll try to get the extension signed. So if you guys are watching this back, let us know in the comments, how do you feel about that list? Is what's maybe the order of importance that you would sign those players? Is there one you like more than the others? Maybe there's one or two that you'd say, nah, ain't worth it, cut them loose. Let us know in the comments. Do us a favor, hit that like button, hit subscribe, click the bell icon so you catch all the live streams moving forward. All right, man, let's shift gears now, Jacob, and let's talk a little crucial offseason, I guess you could say, when it comes to for Brian Gutekunst. So I'm going to put this up so you guys know where to find this article. I want to touch on it a little bit too. This was tweeted out by Bill Huber. You can check his article out at that link that's provided. And I just want to go through and kind of read a little bit of the article. And it says Packers GM Brian Gutekunst needs genius level offseason. All right. So we're going to dive into it. Like I said, just the article itself here. And this is what Bill Huber had to say. Again, go give it a click, give it a like, all that good stuff. It's going to take a great offseason by general manager Brian Gutekunst to help the Packers take the next steps from one-and-done pretender to legitimate Super Bowl contender. It won't be easy. NFL.com used data from overthecap.com, every team's draft capital and salary cap space to measure every team's total offseason capital. First, the bad news. The Packers, without a first-round pick due to the Micah Parsons trade, ranks 29th in draft capital and 22nd in cap space. Added together, the Packers are 30th in total offseason resources. So you understand how they came up with that number, right, Jacob?
Yep.
Draft capital, cap space, we're kind of 30th. So the roster, when you look at it that way, the roster is kind of set, is the way one way of looking at that. Like, of all 32 teams, there's only 2 other teams that their roster should be more set than ours in terms of, all right, we've used up our draft capital for trades and things like that, and our cap space as well. That's one way of looking at it. Doesn't mean you can't free up money, and I'm sure he goes on to say that, but it says now the not so bad news in their quest to win the NFC North Championship, to secure a first-round home playoff game to kick off a potential playoff run, the Packers aren't too far behind the Bears, who are 28th. The Vikings are 27th, and the Lions are 23rd. The Seahawks, the reigning Super Bowl champions, are 20th. So again, if you're wondering how much John Schneider performed his job, better than Brian Gutekunst, there you go. He's 20th on this list. They just won a Super Bowl, and the Packers are ranked 29th in those 2 key categories, right? Now, free agency outlook, Bill Huber goes on to say Green Bay is about $3.38 million over the cap, according to Over the Cap. There are ways to create plenty of cap space to be competitive in free agency, whether it's releasing pricey veterans such as Elton Jenkins and Rashawn Gary, or restructuring contracts. Of course, every team has the same sort of levers at its disposal. Focusing solely on simple contract restructures, the Packers can get up to $52 million under the cap. However, 24 teams can restructure their way into more cap space. So it'll still be an uphill battle to be competitive in what's considered a weak class of unrestricted free agents. Even if he had the money, Gutekunst might not want to go on a shopping spree. The Packers have a quality group of free agents this offseason, which we just talked about, right? And the expectation is they will not put up a fight to retain quarterback Malik Willis, who is ready for a chance to be a full-time starter. Left tackle Rasheed Walker after drafting Jordan Morgan in 2024, and receiver Romeo Dobbs after drafting Matthew Golden and Savion Williams in 25. Linebacker Quay Walker, defensive end Kingsley Enagbare, and offensive lineman Sean Ryan will be free agents too, talking about this free agency here. So just to kind of pause there, what we've talked about so far, how do you feel about where the roster's at when you talk about overall resources like that? Do you feel like this team is ready to win the Super Bowl right now, or do we still need a piece or two? And now it's going to probably push us into that 32 mark, theoretically speaking, in terms of where you're ranking with overall resources. What do you think, man?
Yeah, man, I think that question is easier answered when everyone's healthy. And I know that's a big if kind of thing. But if I'm talking as far as Gutekunst having us structured in that as to why we'd maybe be ranked, 29th. I think that is, if you want to look at it with the glass half full type situation, that, yeah, it's because we have pretty much this whole roster is set with high performing players. I mean, if you look at the tight end room, in theory, when Tucker's healthy, we have one of the best, if not the best, tight ends. If you have Micah on the opposite side, in theory, we have one of the best shutdown edges, if not the best pass rusher in the game. On the opposite side, if Gary was playing up to potential, and you can go through pretty much every single room, in the linebacker room with Cooper, safety room with guys like X and Williams, every up and down that wide receiver room, the running back room, we have a stud and some backup studs. The offensive line, I think, was the biggest thing that kind of let us down. So that's where I think the offseason is going to be our biggest, probably Goody's biggest struggle, is trying to figure out how to put together that best front five so that Love can do Love stuff and so that Josh Jacobs can actually start his runs without getting contacted in the backfield, for crap's sake.
Yeah, that's a great point, man. It's a great point. Bill Huber goes on to write, the Packers can receive up to 4 free agent compensatory picks in the 27 draft, including potential third rounders if Rasheed Walker and Malik Willis sign large enough contracts. Signing players could alter the comp pick equation after the Packers traded away 2 first-round picks from Parsons. That influx of draft capital will be welcome. Beyond the comp pick formula, Goody is going to need to sock away money for Tucker Kraft's contract extension. We just talked about the market value. It's early, but it's showing $15 million per, right? Added together, the desire to keep core players on the roster, the lack of money to spend on outside free agents, and the potential for compensatory picks could have Gutekunst sitting quietly through the opening waves of unrestricted free agency and potentially focusing on veterans who will be released. And I'm talking about this because we made our cheat sheet. We showed the free agents we wanted. We showed how we could restructure and redo the roster, right? but we didn't get to the next step of re-signing these other free agents, right? So you've got to have that in mind. I feel like you've got room to make 2 key signings if you want to. That doesn't mean you're going to pay top dollar for both of those players at their respective positions, but you can get 2 quality starters. Maybe you can get Linderbaum and break the bank a little bit with him, and then go get a guy for $4 to $6 million, another veteran that you could add to the roster too. 2 is the number that I keep coming up with in terms of maybe how many free agents you would potentially sign in that regard, right? So it goes on to say, it goes into the draft outlook, I guess you could say. It says Packers draft outlook. Before the 22 draft, Goody traded Davante Adams for first and second round draft picks. Before the 23 draft, Goody traded Aaron Rodgers to gain additional second round picks in 23 and 24. Rather than more draft resources this year, Gutekunst will have less following the blockbuster trade for Parsons. Without a first-round pick each of the next 2 years, he's going to watch a bunch of blue-chip talent be selected before he gets his chances in the second round with the 52nd overall this year and the third rounder, which is the 84th overall pick this year. Because of the Adams trade and a draft day trade, Goody in 22 wound up with 3 of the first 34 picks and selected – think about this, guys. We traded – Davante Adams, right, and Aaron Rodgers, and we picked up those draft picks. It says 3 of the first 34 picks, they selected Quay Walker, Devontae Wyatt, and Christian Watson. Because of the Rodgers trade, the Packers survived what seems like a whiff on Luke Musgrave because they also drafted Jaden Reed in 23, and it wasn't an either-or at linebacker and safety in 24 as Gutekunst landed Edgerrin Cooper and Javon Bullard. So it's showing, it's sprinkling in the good picks. But, man, when I see that Quay Walker, Devontae Wyatt, those 2 picks, hindsight being 2020, you look back and go, man, we could probably go back to that draft class and go, boy, if they'd have taken this defensive tackle and that linebacker, you probably would have been in a much better situation. If I remember correctly, I think Devin Lloyd was a linebacker that was taken maybe even after we took Quay if they were in the same draft class. I need to go pull that up. But we got Emilio joining us here too. Jacob, before we pass over to Emilio, what do you think about what we just talked about there in terms of the draft picks, man, and what we've – I guess you could say – I guess that's my question is, are they misses? Are Quay Walker and Devontae Wyatt misses in terms of draft pick? And I want to know what the chat thinks too. You guys let us know in the chat. Comment right there and let us know, do you think those were misses, Wyatt and Quay Walker in the first round? Because I think we all agree Christian Watson was a great pick in the second, right? So what do you think of it? Or Jacob, sorry.
I wouldn't necessarily call them misses in general, but for where they were picked in the draft and being those first-round picks are always so coveted, I think I'd be fair to say that they haven't played up to the caliber of a first-round draft pick. I think I'm comfortable saying that for both of them.
Yeah. And just to kind of recap, Devin Lloyd went I don't know if he was picked there or not. He was 20th on the consensus big board in the same draft as Quay. It was Devin Lloyd at 20, Nakobe Dean at 32, then Quay Walker at 39. Now, Leo Chenal, I'm sorry, I think he's been a better stackbacker than Quay. That's just my personal opinion. He was 62 on that. So that's a perfect example of if you don't take Quay where you did there in the first round and you end up getting Leo Chenal wherever he was selected a little bit later in the draft, you're in a lot better situation. Of course, Emilio, this is always hindsight being 2020, but just trying to troubleshoot everything. It's really interesting to see how it's all falling into place.
No, that's exactly it. I think Eric Sutherland said it perfect there with every pick is a miss until it isn't, right? How long did we talk about, or how long, not us, but everybody talking about, J Love was a miss. Everybody else is a miss. Tucker was a miss. And it just, you kind of need those opportunities, get them on the field, get those chances. And I mean, it's tough because I do like Quay. He's got the physical attributes. He's got everything. I feel like he's, from where he started to now grown, completely as a player. I just, if we, like I said, if we could get him for under 10 or under, I still would bring him back. But DJ was talking the other day on a pod. He thinks that he's probably going to get paid outside of that. I think they were talking about $12 million. He said that he's probably going to get paid outside of that market just because he's a size, speed athlete kind of guy.
Yeah, completely agree. We kind of talked about it this whole time, right? So, like what Eric Sutherland said there, though, every draft pick is a miss unless it isn't. It's a really interesting way of putting it for sure. Coach Lynn says, I don't think misses, just not game changers,
That's
right?
fair.
So, and this is where the question goes, Coach, and it's tough because we know all these players that make it to the NFL level, they're good football players, right? And I subscribe to the Mike McCarthy way of thinking where he said there's no bad football players in the NFL. There's good players and there's great players. And sometimes the difference between good and great are the scheme they're put in and the situation they're put in with the players around them that make them better, right? So I think that's a very good way of putting it too. But if you were to ask yourself, you're spending a first-round pick, and in this case, 2 first-round picks in the same draft class, don't they need to be game changers? Isn't that the goal? And maybe it's not year 1. Maybe it's year 2. Maybe it's year 3. We're in year 4, and we're not sitting here going, these guys are truly game changers. Maybe we are with Devontae White a little bit. I don't know. But, again, when you look at the lack of run defense as opposed to his pass rush ability, it's just hard for me to completely –
yeah, Clay, the only thing I would say about game changers, I feel like that's like a top 10 kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's our only pushback is you get those Aiden Hutchinson's top 3. You know, that's where you get that's where you get those game changers. That's just the only issue with us having maybe if you bundled 2 and got a little bit closer, you take both those first and do something. But yeah, that would be my only pushback on it.
I got you. No, and it makes sense. It does. Devontae White, listen, this isn't the knock Goody. Goody wasn't the only one that had a high grade on Devontae White. We had him high on our board. He was 25th on the consensus big board. But check this out. Guess who was number 27 in that draft? You could have taken instead of Devontae White. Tyler Linderbaum.
Yeah.
Now what are we talking about, right? Well, was it a need at the time? We'd have to look back at the roster. But, again, it's just it's kind of like the whole – taking Josh Myers over Creed Humphrey thing. These things are starting to pile up a little bit, right? And there's other GMs that are running laps around Goody a touch as well, right? Like Quay Walker was 39th. We took him in the first round. Why? Because he started skyrocketing up boards. He moved 8 spots in the consensus big board right before the draft, the week of the draft. So he started creating some momentum. Did they get bluffed on there? I don't know. Christian Watson was 42, so obviously that's a solid pick. Logan Hall was 45. That's the guy we're talking about free agency right now, right? If he stays in free agency. I'm just going through that draft class and kind of looking. Guess who was ranked 56 that you could have gotten in the second round probably? Kenneth Walker, the best running back in football right now, right? You could have gotten him. And, again, I understand it's hindsight's 2020. We talk about Leo Chenal. He was at 62. Darian Kennard was actually 66 in that draft. That's interesting. Didn't know he was that high. Sean Ryan was 70th. We got him in the 3rd round, and obviously it didn't pan out. But Goody wasn't the only person that thought so high of him, right? That's another one that applies there as well. I'm trying to see if there's any others here in this particular draft that really popped that was a late. There's Rasheed Walker. He was at 102, and we got him in the 7th round, probably because he humped another player on the field. I would imagine. Have a little something to do with that.
Yeah,
here's a name
player,
Here's a name for you. 111, the consensus big board out of Wake Forest, Zach Tom. So that was a home run pick, right? So, again, the goal here isn't to go, man, Goody sucks at drafting. It's just kind of pointing out the good picks, the bad picks we're missing in the first round. That's what's happening, right? So
we're set this year is what you're saying.
Yeah, right. That's why Goody said, hell with this first round pick. We're just going to give it up and go get Micah Parsons.
I'm tired of getting yelled at by everybody for it. Let me get rid of this one and next year. I'll be set.
I'm tired of this, Grandpa.
Mm-hmm.
That's too damn bad. So, but I agree with what Coach Lynn said there. Super chat here for Clint. Thank you so much, Clint. Appreciate you, buddy. He says, how long do you think it will take for players to mesh with new coaches? That's a great question. You got to think of the veteran presence on the team or lack thereof, right? I think that Edgerrin Cooper will be good in any system he goes into. I think Micah Parsons will be good in any system he goes into. My mind, Jacob, it immediately goes to the secondary, right? It immediately goes to the secondary. Like, okay, how is this secondary that struggled last year going to gel with Jonathan Gannon's new defense? So I don't know. I feel good about the safeties. Don't get me wrong. That's why we're pushing for maybe going and getting a cornerback in free agency, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing I was going to say right away is, the safety room should be taken care of with his leadership, obviously with Evan Williams. Bullard all of a sudden is kind of a vet. And then, like you said, it's trying to pepper into the rest of that secondary, specifically the cornerback room, what we're going to do. We've argued many, many times over this last few years of this podcast that we need to have some veteran presence. I feel like what better room to add some of that presence in than the cornerback room. I think we've looked at the free agency list quite thoroughly, so there's probably nothing new. But if we can just get somebody that's maybe, just under 30, just maybe a little bit over 30 that could come in there, understand how to make the transition, like you said, to a new coach, a new scheme. I think Gannon has a lot of experience with secondary, so I'm not as worried because it sounds like that he's got a pretty good grasp on that situation. So I'm still eager. I'm not ready to throw in any towels yet, but it is going to be quite the transformation. We'll see how the guys can handle it.
Let me get your take, Emilio. I'm going to shut this dog up.
No, I think that's a great point, Jacob. And when I was listening to DJ, he was talking about how, or DJ and Buck were both talking about when you bring in a new coach, how, what is that first thing you want that coach to do? I feel like it's go through the tape and say, okay, this is what I want to do with this player, kind of like Heffley did. But you say maybe Goody wants to move on from Keyshawn, but Gannon thinks that he can use Key in a certain way. Do you lean on the DC's decision at that point, or do you move on from the guy? It's all, contract dependent and everything. But I think that you can get that. Say, like Seattle, they played a lot of dime this past year, right? They did really well with dime, a lot of secondary. What if he's happy with our 4 safeties? X, Bull, Evan, and, KT, right? And then you go, okay, I'm going to rotate those 4. We'll have Zane as a backup. Maybe we only run 1 corner or 2 corners, and we float that in and out. I feel like there's just a lot that he can do. But I do think the players, they know it, right? You can't. I mean, what are you going to do? Complain that he's your coach now? You got to kind of accept it and move on. I don't think that they're going to be, pouting about it, but I think they'll be ready.
Definitely. Clint, thank you for the super, buddy. Appreciate you. Daryl in the chat says Leo Chenal would be a home run signing for the Packers. I completely agree, especially if the market value holds cheap. Yeah. Like it's showing. And then Jake in the chat says, don't overpay for good, boys. Let them walk if too expensive. You never overpay for good. You're always willing to overpay for great. I don't think like Devontae Wyatt, I think he's a good player, right? He's a good player. He's not great. Don't overpay. If you can get him for $12 million, hell yeah, sign the check. But if it's going to take 20, 25 million per, I can't get there. So if you guys are watching this video back later, let us know in the comments, how do you feel about everything we laid out there? How do you feel about how Goody's handled the situation to this point? Maybe where would you rank him in the league? How do you feel about some of the moves, specifically the first round picks between Devontae White and Quay Walker? Do you think those were hits? Do you think they were misses? Do you think they were meh, and by default that makes them misses? Let us know what you think in the comments. Hit like for us, hit subscribe, click the bell icon so we check you out here in the future live streams. All right, boys, moving along now. Let's talk a little Malik Willis. Am I the only one getting excited about Malik Willis hitting free agency? Like, I feel like I get a chance to root for another team on the side wherever he goes, man. Are y'all kind of getting the same vibe there too?
Yeah, depends on where he goes.
Well, let me correct that. If he goes to the Vikings, I hope he falls flat on his face, right?
There you go.
Yeah. If he ends up like in Miami or Pittsburgh or something like that, I'd be all about it. I'd be all about rooting for him. As long as it's at least every game other than the one that he played, obviously played the Packers in if they do cross paths. So this was an article written by Wendell Ferreira. You guys make sure you go. I want to put it up on the screen so you know where to find it on X. Heck of an article. I love some of the writing he does here. It's just been awesome. One of the things he said in this article was latest market update is music to the Packers' ears and exactly what their long-term roster plan needs. We're lacking draft picks. We talked about if Rasheed Walker and Malik Willis potentially get big deals in free agency, we might have 2 third-round picks in 2027 added to, depending on what offsets and what we spend in free agency. Is a really, really interesting dynamic. So Wendell Ferreira went on and wrote, the Green Bay Packers gave up only a 7th-round pick for 2 years of excellent backup quarterback play, Malik Willis. Now he's likely to leave Green Bay, but that doesn't mean the Packers won't get any top compensation. On the Rich Eisen show, NFL insider Ian Rappaport said he expects Malik Willis to get a significant contract in free agency, which could potentially put the Packers in position to receive a compensatory 3rd-round pick in 2027. He went on to share a tweet here where Ian was talking, and I think it was at the real reason is the name of the X account. It says Pelissero says Willis will get 20 to 30 million on the open market, and not to Photoshop him in a Dolphins jersey just yet. Rappaport says it may be too hard for Willis to land in Miami because of his price tag. I really think people underestimated his value, as I've said all along. So again, we're sitting here talking 20 to 30 million. I mentioned, man, he's probably going to go to the Dolphins. These guys are saying, no, if this turns into a bidding war, the Dolphins won't be able to afford it. So what if Malik Willis ends up getting, will he get 40 million? Is that possible, Jacob? Do you think Malik Willis could get 40 million on the open market? 20 to 30, 20 million I'm on board with. I think he's shown enough. It's worth a gamble to go, let's make him our quarterback. a 4-year deal that's really a 2-year deal, right? And you can get out of it if you need to. But when you get to 30 million, it's like you're really banking on him being the guy. If you get upwards of 35 or 40 million, whoa. What do you think about that market value?
I mean, look, I'm happy for the kid for sure. If I'm putting myself into a GM spot, if it's me personally, I'm so cheap, I'm never going to do that deal. But if somebody's desperate and they think that really he is the key to unlocking maybe some sort of run, maybe, you know, to unlock the kind of hidden weapon in the offense that finally makes all the puzzle pieces fit. I mean, we've seen what he can do on multiple different occasions, and it wasn't a flash in the pan. I think it was easy to maybe think that the first couple drives, then maybe even the first game, then like the first, like, you know, couple games while the kid's getting lucky, and then you just see it consistently. It's with his legs, but not just with his legs. When he decided to drop back and have to make some pinpoint passes, I mean, he was humming that tater. I mean, and it looked effortless. I mean, it really did. It reminded me of, you know, I hate even giving him any props, but like Cam Newton in his prime, when he could actually just tuck it and run, or he could actually kind of throw the thing on a rope. If the right team comes along and starts knocking, I don't know, I could see 35-ish, somewhere like that.
Yeah. Ron Sample says Miami's cutting all the players are trying to afford Willis. Obviously, they got rid of Cheetah, right, Emilio?
Yep.
So, is that what they're doing, you think? They think they're trying to free up as much space as they can to go get Malik Willis as their quarterback?
Dude, I'll be honest, he probably could get 40. So, I mean, it's just because, you know, you go see Sam Darnold went out and got paid, right? He had a good year. You saw enough from Malik that I think you could bet on him. And there's really not a lot in the quarterback class. You know, it's not like you have a bunch. You got one or two up top, and then it just seems like it's not going to be one of those quarterback drafts where 6 are gone in the first round. So you got to take your chances. If you're a team that needs a quarterback, you got to be willing to pay for it. I mean, there's just kind of nothing else besides that. He's going to touch the ball every play. So I think that I'm excited for him. I hope he breaks the bank, you know, to whoever team he goes to, because it's only going to help us a little bit. But yeah, Malik, he deserves it, man.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. Stand up, dude. And again, would you consider you're overpaying for Malik? Is he a great football player? If he plays like he did in Green Bay, yeah, I think that's great. I mean, he graded out as he had the top PFF grade amongst all quarterbacks. Now, granted, it wasn't a full season. It wasn't like 700 snaps or something like that, right? So you got to take that, you know, for what it's worth. But it could crack 40, right, if there's less guaranteed. And really what we're talking about is you could get closer to 20 million if you almost fully guarantee the contract, right? Less guarantees, you get the average annual value blimping up, and obviously you're not guaranteed to get that money. It's exactly what it sounds like. But with more guaranteed money, that's where it's the cash over cap game, right? You're paying more cash for more cap space, essentially. So it's going to be interesting to see how it unfolds. The rest of the article goes on to say the quarterback market, when asked about if Malik Willis could follow John Eric Sullivan and Jeff Hafley to the Miami Dolphins, Rappaport said there's a financial component to the equation. Quote, can they afford Malik Willis is an interesting question, Rappaport said. Everyone in the world is saying, well, obviously he's going to go to Miami. It's the people who traded for him, and they know him well. I think Malik Willis is just going to have a really, really, really good market. When he played in some tough situation, he has been really impressive. Last offseason, the last player to generate a third-round compensatory pick was tackle Dan Moore Jr., who signed with the Tennessee Titans for $20.5 million a year. Aaron Banks, who signed with the Packers for $19.2 million a year, God, stuff, is expected to generate a fourth to the San Francisco 49ers. Considering a cap inflation, Willis would have to sign a deal worth something around $22 million a year to put the Packers in position to get a third. Obviously, Green Bay couldn't sign an equivalent external free agent to secure the pick. So they can find a way to keep him under the cap, or so can they find a way to keep him under the cap? Rappaport question about the Dolphins. I don't know, because they're going to have competition. That's one thing that happens this time of year. It's like, okay, so he has a background here. He's obviously going here. When you actually look at the money, that would be tough for Miami to do. They could do it. They've got smart people, but it might be too big of a challenge. So it says beside the Dolphins, it's where it's going to hurt, boys. Besides the Dolphins, the Minnesota Vikings, Arizona Cardinals, Cleveland Browns, and New York Jets could all be on the quarterback market, and it's not a particularly enticing draft class at the position. So I think they got one quarterback projected to go in the first round as it sits right now, last I checked, right? So when you truly look at that, you're talking about Dolphins, Vikings, Cardinals, Browns, Jets. A 5-team bidding war, that pretty much ensures me that he's going to get paid enough to warrant a 3rd-round compensatory pick for the Packers if we don't go out and sign someone of equal value, right? That's going to offset that. But if he ends up in Minnesota, and again, KOC, similar system, similar lingo, similar terminology, Emilio, to what we do in Green Bay, Malik Willis should be able to seamlessly step right into that offense. And, oh, by the way, they've got a much more mobile element with a quarterback that was clocked at, I think, 19 or 20 mile an hour, Malik Willis, as opposed to J.J. McCarthy, who obviously crapped the bed last year. I hate the idea, Emilio, of him going to Minnesota, man.
I do too, but I mean, think about it. They let Sam Darnold slip through their hands, right? They had him, decided to move on from him. He gets 3 years, $100 million to 33 average. And then you looking at the Jets last year, they signed Fields for 2 years, $40 million. He's getting over 20. He's got to be getting over 30. I mean, he's probably almost to that Sam Darnold level, but he didn't play as many snaps. But you have the experience. He's been on 2 teams. You've showed that he can handle it. He's got the composure. He can go out there cold and do that. I mean, he's got some skills. He's going to be 30 to 40 for sure. I mean, and good for him, right? I hope he breaks, 100. I hope he gets 110, 120 for 3 years and go do your thing. But it's the bidding war is going to be big, and you would think that the Vikings, if they're really done with McCarthy, would actually be, probably one of the tops on that list.
Yeah, and what Bates says here, Jacob, I didn't even think about. This is why Bates is so great, man, in the comments. I can see the Cardinals going after him, especially because of the Matt LaFleur, Mike LaFleur connection. Mm-hmm. So Mike LaFleur, Matt's younger brother, Jacob looks like he's in witness protection. I'm kind of digging it too.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Just in time for the Epstein files, right?
Yeah. Oh, boy.
You gotta get it ring lit.
Yeah, we're working on it.
But Jacob, that's a team. As long as they're not playing the Packers, I can root for Malik Willis with Mike LaFleur down there for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be a great spot for him too. It's just, what do they do with Kyler? That'd be hilarious.
Well, I think the rumor is, right, Emilio, they're going to trade him. It sounds like they're really open to trade him.
They're really trying to move on from him. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you guys this. Would you give up a 7th-round pick for Kyler Murray? Not at that cap hit. Something going to have to happen there, right? But
no.
Our offensive line isn't a wall enough to protect him, and he can't. You got to see over it. Got to open the gaps. I don't think we're opening throwing lanes for him.
I know you're not a hottest. You're not being a hottest in here, are you?
No, not at all. Let me ask you this question: would you rather Malik Willis go to the Vikings or Rodgers go to the Vikings?
Oh my
now?
God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Do we have to choose?
I would like an answer, but you don't have to if you don't want to.
Sounds like a congressional hearing.
I would like an answer.
I can answer. I ain't going to give you an answer. All right. Well,
at this point, I think it honestly would hurt me if Malik Willis went there, just because I know that's like it could be their future.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With Rodgers, it's just like an old man just dragging his bones out there one last time.
I'll tell you, man, that's a great question. That's a fascinating question. If I had to choose which would I rather go to the Vikings, either Malik Willis or Aaron Rodgers? Man, my heart wants to say Malik Willis because I don't want Aaron to have the fan base hate him for a year,
right.
And it kind of tarnish his legacy a little bit. But honestly, I think I'd rather have Aaron go there because how much gas does he actually have in the tank? And if Malik Willis is the player we thought, we're going to have to deal with him for the next 8 to 10 years, So It's interesting. That's a fascinating question. I hate that you asked it. Sucks.
I'm sorry. You're right.
So anyway, it very
says he said I'd go with Malik. He said he doesn't want to stay on AR.
That's I think that's right. I think that's the tiebreaker for me, Bates. What about you, Jacob? If you had to choose, did you answer that question? Did you?
Yeah. I'd say I would rather Rodgers go because I don't want them to have Malik. Yeah, for the next foreseeable future.
Got it. All right.
CJ Rodgers
without Jared Love it.
Mike Berry doesn't even want to answer. That's the best answer right there.
He said, I plead the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th. All right. If you guys are watching this back later, let us know what you think about Malik Willis, man. Where do you want to see him go? Do you think we'll get a third round compensatory pick for him? Do you think the market's going to be there? Will it be 20 million? Will it be 30 million? Will he crack 40 million? Let us know in the comments how you feel about it. Make sure you hit that like button for us. Hit subscribe, click the bell icon. All right, gents. That's really what I wanted to hit tonight, man. I thought those were really good pieces by Bill Huber and by Wendell Ferreira. We got a couple questions here in the Patreon. Is there anything you guys want to hit before we dive into the Patreon mailbag? We just got 2 or 3 questions here. Actually, 3, I believe. Or 2, I believe.
No, nothing yet.
No, I'm good.
All right, good deal, man. Let's jump into it real quick. Got a few questions here. Any other super chats that come through, we'll make sure we hit them before we wrap up as well. But here we go. We already hit this one by Rodney the other day. Cannonball John said, this is an interesting question. If Kenny Clark becomes available, will we bring him back at a reasonable price? So you got to think in terms of deployment, right? That means he would start at nose over Kobe Wooden. And reasonable, what does that mean? 5 million? 10 million? What would the market be for him? I bet I could probably find his market value, maybe, although he's not set to be a free agent. I think they're assuming that Dallas might move on from him to free up cap space, right? What do you guys think about that right there? I'll start with you, Emilio. Would you want Kenny Clark back at a reasonable price? And I guess the better question is, how much would you be willing to pay to have Kenny Clark on the roster?
Yeah, that's tough. Kenny is the man. If we get him at that Wyatt price, 12 million, 10, 12-ish, I think that's probably fair. But then we're going back to Cam Hayward, right? Where you would be like, all right, how much are you going to pay him? You know, how old is he getting? It's just, I hope that he hasn't, kind of gone on the downturn of the career would be my only hesitation on that.
No, I get it. I completely get it. And just so you know, his cap situation, he's set to be $21.5 million against the cap for the Dallas Cowboys. Mm-hmm. However, they cut him. He's off their books. So that number doesn't really matter to us. It's what would the market be for him, right? That's essentially what it turns into. He's 31 years old, so that's going against him. And listen, Jacob, that's an old 31 years old. He's been in the league since he was, 20 years old, right? So, yeah. As it says here, as Chris says, Kenny worth maybe $5 million now. At $5 million, I'd sign him back at that, although I haven't seen the PFF grade yet.
Yeah, I would honestly be willing to probably pay him 7 or 8. And I'm breaking the bank. You guys know me. I think that he's still got some left in the tank. And I honestly believe that he would be pretty excited to come back after, getting a little taste to see what it's like in the big city over there in Dallas. And, I'm sure it was pretty nice for the first couple of weeks and then got a cold, splash of water to the face. It does probably sound like they are going to part ways with him just because they're kind of in cap hell right now. And I don't know anybody that would argue that the guy's worth 21.5. So, is he willing to come back, do maybe like a, prove it? I don't want to say a prove it deal, but more of like I don't want to say a pity year either, but like some sort of just come do a 1-year deal. We'll give you $8 million guaranteed, fully guaranteed kind of thing. Just see, I think it would help bolster that tackle. I know that for sure. Me feel.
Yeah,
I don't think it's gonna happen, but
but if he becomes available, he's probably got to be one of the top D linemen that would be in free agency moving forward. There's not a lot out there that doesn't have the experience that Kenny does.
Yeah, and looking at the PFF grades last year, he graded out a 67.6. Pass rush grade was 72.4. Run defense grade 53.7. So it's not, you can't expect Kenny to come in and be a top 32 defensive tackle. You're being unrealistic if you expect him to be like, he's going to be one of the best starting defensive tackles in the game, right? But again, if you're adding good quality depth, I guess you could say rotational depth, I think he would be a better nose tackle where he sits today than Kobe Wooden. But Kobe Wooden hasn't been an all-world defensive tackle either, right? He's been good for where we picked him and definitely good for the cap hit. But that's really interesting question for sure. So appreciate you with that question there, Cannonball John. Jason Y with the super chat. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate you. He says, if Gannon switches back to a 3-4 defense, does this help or hurt us with players we have? You guys, I've been pretty vocal about this, Jason. I think that's overblown, the whole 34-43, because we're in nickel so much, right? We're in nickel 4-2-5 70% of the time. Okay. And whether you say it's a nickel 4-2-5 or a nickel 2-4-5, it's the same personnel, right? You got 2 edge defenders, 2 interior defensive linemen, i.e., 300-pound interior defensive guys, right? So whether you go to the 3-4 or the 4-3, I don't think it necessarily hurts your roster. You've already got a nose tackle there, and Kobe Wooden. Kobe Wooden can play nose tackle in a 34 defense, right? He can do that. Nas Stackhouse can do that in a 34 defense. The question is the same with the nickel defense. Are those guys effective at what they do, right? So I guess the way I would answer this question, I want to get your all's take, is I don't feel any worse or any better about our defensive tackle position, whether we run a 3-4 or a 4-3. I feel like it's the same either way because you're going to be in that nickel, like I said, 70% of the time.
No, absolutely. I think it's going to matter more. How many are walked up, how many are on the line, things like that. What are you doing with the safeties? And I mean, we could basically expect. I mean, when we had our NASCAR package out there, it didn't matter if you had edges or not. You were still rushing. You still had 4 rushing. You could have 3 rushing. You had Micah drop and all that stuff. And it's not going to matter in the end. But I think you're right. I think he's just going to be sort of a multiple front of just kind of being everywhere. 3 on the line, 5 on the line, 4 on the line, walk up, walk down, 7 on the line. X likes to walk up and be on the edge there. Things like that. I think he's going to really try to, scheme up a lot there.
Yeah, definitely. Jacob, you got anything to add there, buddy?
Yeah, I agree with everything he just said. In addition, I wouldn't necessarily say that it would hurt or help the current players we have. I just, again, would maybe be looking for a veteran presence in that D tackle room who's maybe played in multiple schemes, come in and be able to help these guys along if there is some sort of any like learning gap or whatever the case may be. But I mean, that's a pretty relatively young group still in that D tackle room. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if any group could use maybe a little veteran presence, it might be them.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jason, thank you so much for the super chat, buddy. We appreciate you. Next chat in here or question in here was from Janice, and she says probably a naive question, but I'm curious if there is any tactical reason an NFL team might group special teams under the defensive coordinator with a defensive assistant effectively running the unit. The way I look at questions like that, Janice, is, and not saying I'm right and anybody else is wrong, how my mind fires is, to the best of my knowledge, there's no other coaches doing it across the league. So you got 32 opportunities to approach it that way, and nobody sees it as beneficial. And you're talking about whether they're good teams or bad teams, you're talking about a group of 32 separate groups that are the best at what they do in the entire world, right? And nobody seems to think that's the way to approach it. It's not a naive question at all, don't get me wrong. But I think if that was the recipe for success, at least one team would be doing it. And I could be just ignorant here. I don't know of a team in the league, unless you guys do, that actually approach it that way. Does that make sense? Again, like she says here, a special teams under the defensive coordinator with a defensive assistant effectively running the unit. Am I understanding that question the right way, you think, Emilio?
Yeah, no, I think you are too. And, you think about, it was Harbaugh, right? He was special teams coordinator. Bill had a lot to do with the special teams, and it's always been 3. It's a 3 aspect kind of game. You got offense, defense, special teams. It's always 3 phases. It's kind of always been like that. I think just structurally for them to separate it, it's easier for that. And then again, you get all the changes and stuff. I mean, yeah, you can you can scheme up maybe a punt block and things like that. But besides that, you are, down to repetition, consistency, figuring out. I mean, Bisaccia was talking about the way the air is spinning on the left hash of Lambeau when you're down on the, one end versus the other. There's so many little nuances to it. I think that when you look at it, it's just something that you don't want to also throw onto a defensive coordinator when they're worrying about safety rotation, who's playing out there. I mean, because you think about Gannon. If he had Buddha, right, as safety back there at the Cardinals, what if X is our new Buddha Baker and he's all over the field? He's doing all this, and that. And then right after the defense goes down and gets scored on, all right, get field goal block out there and then return. It's just, I think it's a little too much.
Yeah. And Jacob, this kind of goes hand in hand with the conversation we talk about, like with Travis Hunter and playing wide receiver and cornerback. It's like, well, he can do it. Yeah, we know he can do it. But rookies, as we've seen with Matthew Golden, they struggle to learn just one side of the ball, the playbook, the choice routes, everything involved, right? I imagine there's probably not enough time, especially with the limited practice time they get with these guys too, right? Like you're just going to be stretched too thin, I guess is probably why teams don't do this, you think?
Yeah, it's got to be. I mean, and we had a guy like Bisaccia who, regardless of what you may think about him, had a lot of experience in the NFL, had a lot of experience with the special teams unit in general, and even a guy that was that well versed. The actual rankings the last few years were not impressive. So to think that a guy can just kind of haphazardly coach special teams like in passing, I think is a little bit, again, not directed at whoever asked the question, but I think it's people need to take it even more seriously maybe than they are now, not less serious, I think.
Yeah, no, I think it's very well said. And again, I think it's a great question, Janice. Again, I just kind of default to if it was the right thing to do, at least one of the 32 teams would approach it that way. And maybe there is a team out there. I just don't know of it, right? Mm-hmm. So appreciate all the questions over there. Again, that's just a perk to be in our Patreon group. Those questions in the mailbag act just like super chats. We'll make sure we read them on the air. The best way to support what we do here at PTA is join our Patreon community, patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access. Also, everybody who's watching right now, do me a quick favor, smash that like button. And wherever you get your podcast, search Packer Fan Total Access and go give us a like, a subscription, whatever it's called over there. And give us a review if you'd like to as well. So that way you can find the show on the go when you're not watching here on YouTube also. So anything else you boys want to hit before we wrap up? That's pretty much everything I had on the schedule here, man. It was a fun conversation.
I'm gonna get me a ring light. So I look like I'm on 60 Minutes
perfect, Jacob.
or something. It's the best I ever looked, yo.
Seriously.
And you look perfect, Jacob.
And then he bolstered his sword, and I grabbed my knife, and I went for the door. And
yeah, I was not on the island. So I did see a tweet came out from Evan Sittery, if I'm saying that right, Sidery maybe. Malik Willis is calculated now by Spot Track to earn $35.5 million. Again, those projections sometimes are too high, sometimes they're too low. They're exactly what they sound like. They're a projection. That's going to be a fun thing to monitor, right? Jason, why Jacob looks like an FBI informant. He really does, man.
Let's just say things went south at the Oval Office, all right?
Oh, boy.
I'll just say snitches get stitches.
That's right.
Okay, that's the way that works. So, all right, we're going to wrap it up there before we get canceled. Appreciate everybody jumping in here and talking ball with us this evening. It was a lot of fun. You guys let us know in the comments, how do you feel about everything we covered tonight, man? Every time, and listen, if you don't have a question or a comment for the comments, just hit us with a Go Pack Go. Everything helps the algorithm, and especially hitting that like button and subbing to the channel, all that good stuff. We greatly appreciate it. So, boys, appreciate y'all jumping on here too, man. This was a lot of fun. We will be back tomorrow. I'll probably go live during the day, maybe do a morning show, and then might do one in the evening. We're going to try to make these a little more regular when it comes to the evening shows as well. Just had a lot to do this morning. Couldn't get out here and go live early. So with all that being said, y'all have a wonderful evening. We will see you tomorrow. My name's Clayton. That's Jacob. That's Emilio. This is PTA. Tim's out doing important stuff. He'll be back maybe tomorrow, maybe not. Maybe Sunday, I think he said. But looking forward to talking ball with him as well. Y'all have a wonderful evening. Tell him bye, Jacob. Say it as creepy as you can.
Goodbye.
Here we go.
We're out.
Bye, guys.